Communication. Why is it important? Why is it important for one brother to be able to speak to another brother and look him eye to eye? To whisper wise counsel into a brother's ear when he perhaps is straying off onto another path? Why is it important to be able to speak to a person who's interested in Freemasonry and actually look him in his eye and tell whether or not he's somebody who you would want in the craft? Well, it's actually super important because without having good communication, you're not going to be able to understand what the other person is trying to get across. And sometimes they get frustrated and they may say certain triggers that there are certain triggers that people will have in their voice, or certain triggers that people will have in their rhetoric that will tell you that they don't believe that they're being heard. One of those triggers is the word again. Now, again can mean a couple of things. Again can mean somebody is unprepared to speak to the issues that they wish to get across, but they think that if they repeat whatever they were attempting to say, that you will understand them the second time, as though some mysticism or magic will descend upon the heavens and make it so that you understand what they were trying to get across. Now, one of the things that is also important is listening, because in Freemasonry, you have to have an attentive ear, and your more senior brothers should help you with an instructed tongue. If someone who in the world, and this isn't just in Freemasonry, if someone in the world is trying to get across a point, but they don't have the skills of rhetoric, what's going to happen? They're going to fail to get people to understand their point of view. And sometimes their point of view is simply wrong. And that's okay, as long as they have an open mind and can understand that it's that other people's opinions and ideas matter. Now, credibility. That's another interesting thing. Sometimes there are people who come into Freemasonry who don't fully understand the importance of including as many people as we can. Now, that doesn't mean opening up the doors. We do have something called guarding the West Gate. Guarding the West Gate is supposed to be where we will discuss with a potential candidate what he would bring to the craft. And if he's going to bring something helpful to the craft, well, then include it. If he's going to come in with ill intentions or plans that are not pure and not helpful, then we have no need for him. Sometimes it's helpful to understand what people's intentions are. And we call, when we speak to somebody about coming into the craft, we have in the back of our mind something called guarding the West Gate, which is basically to speak to them and decide whether or not they're going to be helpful to the craft or whether they're in it for some less virtuous reasons. And unfortunately, sometimes people, instead of guarding the West Gate, they build a West Wall, which means that they are not creating avenues for other good people and imperfect people, and I count myself as an imperfect man, to come in and improve themselves. It's important to make sure in our lodges that we not include those guys who are going to try to divide and conquer. The guys who always want to say again, again, again. No. You tell me again once, I'll put up with it. You tell me again twice, I'm dropping a black cube. And one of the things that we sometimes forget about in social media is that you cannot convey your thoughts in the best way by talking to somebody through through the keyboard. You can't understand their inflections. You cannot absorb the importance of their words if they're trying to convey a thought and they're just frustrated. Maybe they're a person who is more of a visual communicator, and a visual communicator can get things across by using they use a lot of hand gestures. So communication is super important in Freemasonry. And in fact, rhetoric is one of the seven liberal arts that we practice. This is also why you cannot apply online. So I get about 150 messages a day from people saying, can you help me become a Freemason? Can you, uh, and calling me master and making me all of these strange offers, hail the light and, you know, master Illuminati and all this crazy nonsense. First, we're not Illuminati. I'm not their master, and they just need to pull up Google and find a lodge near them. I don't spend hours and hours responding to these roughly 150 messages a day that I get because it's non-productive. So uh, uh, when we meet a person face to face, I can tell when I look at them eye to eye whether or not they're actually a good person, or whether they're being sincere with me. If they're not being sincere with me, I don't want to talk to them. So I'm done. There's not we're not everybody is made to be a Freemason, and there have been people who I've just said, no, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen at this lodge. I don't think it's going to happen elsewhere, and we've had to end that conversation. Doesn't mean that they couldn't change in another 3 years, 5 years, and actually become a more productive, contributing member of society and even become a decent Freemason. All of that could happen, but sometimes I just have to say no. And that's a process as well. There are processes that we all go through. So when I'm getting ready for lodge, I have, I'm putting on I pull on my shirt, I put on my tie, if I'm wearing a vest, um, put on the vest, I slide on whatever coat I choose to slide on, I put on my ring. Sometimes I'll add a name badge. Sometimes I'll have a special pin that I'll feel that will speak to me in that time for that day. But developing these processes and these processes for communication as well is super important. Now, I could speak about this probably for an hour, but I hope that you've gotten something good out of it today. But if you do have an opportunity to communicate with people, do your best and communicate face to face. Now, go do some good.